Start again. Good morning. My internet isn't great today, so apologies if it's dipping in and out. I hope you had a beautiful bank holiday weekend and that you are starting this shorter week feeling refreshed and revived. Okay, so this morning I wanted to share some thoughts on our relationship with mess and how that strikes me as being very restrictive for many of us, actually. And I was reminded of this by witnessing in a beautiful therapeutic circle that I attended recently, a revelationary discovery that one of our members made around the fact that she knew she was following her heart and her gut for the first time in years, and that process that was coming from that was messy, and that was okay. And that for years she had been avoiding taking action, taking steps that she knew in her heart and her soul were right because of a fear of mess. And that really struck me because some of you may have already heard me describing myself as this, but I do know that I am myself a recovering perfectionist. And so I'm always interested in what people's relationship is with mess and what is meant by mess. So for me, for example, in my own life, it was very much, broadly speaking, about feeling out of control and therefore needing to control the things that I could control. And that was my external environment, and to some extent my internal environment as well. And that leads me on to inviting you to explore your own relationship with mess, because you might be absolutely fine with physical mess, with, actual practical mess, things out on the floor, especially if you've got young kids, you might be absolutely fine with that or not. And you might find that where your relationship with mess really shows up is in perhaps bodily mess. Many people come to me and start the homeopathic process, for example, and part of that process is encouraging mess to come out, because better out than in. We don't want stale stuff, rubbish, literally piling up in our bodies. We all, I'm sure most of us have experienced the effects of our bowels not working quite as they should. That is literally rubbish stacking up in our bodies and causing us problems. The same with all kinds of other bodily fluids and, mucus. And, it's why often we get so bothered by things like colds. And it's why we get so bothered by things happening on our skin, because it's mess, it's stuff coming out that we're not, we feel we're not fully in control of, and we're not fully able to keep on top of tidying it up. And it's often why many of us may stick with pharmaceuticals and behavioural practices that actually do tidy that up, suppress it, make sure that it doesn't show, the mess doesn't show, because we don't like it. We feel fearful of it, or we feel that if we can't even control our bodies, well, what can we control? There are all sorts of possibilities in that exploration, and they will all pay dividends if we're brave enough to actually explore that relationship with mess. So I've talked about, and often actually I should add, when people come to me and they start the homeopathic process, it's probably the main reason why people don't stick with it, because they get alarmed by stuff coming out. And there's a belief there that that is bad. And it very seldom is bad, actually. So, once you understand and once you transform your relationship with your own bodily mess, that really can be, can't think of a better word, but I know I'm repeating myself, that can be transformative in how you understand health and disease, the respect that you have for your own body. And that's something that in women I really, really want to, well, and men as well, but in women in particular, there's been such a strong history of us not accepting our bodily functions. I mean, just think about the menstrual bleed. I don't think I need to go on anymore. So much shame, so much rejection of that. And it's still there, by the way. It may be slightly better, slightly more acceptable, but it's still there at the root of many of our perceptions of our menstrual cycle. We are still a bit disconnected from it. Not all of us, but there you go. So to actually reconnect and have that respect for the mess that our body makes, and also literally for taking up space, actually, for our choice in clothing, for our very presence in certain situations, certainly work situations, many work situations for many women, and also even at home, trying to, perhaps if we've come from a place where it wasn't safe to be big in our presence, in our energy, and in our physical space taking up, then we will be subconsciously making ourselves smaller and tidier, and not wearing loud clothing or bright clothing or flailing about, dancing, anything that's joyful can be perceived as messy. And that's not always acceptable for some people. And I'm not judging anybody, because nothing comes out of nowhere. There will be reasons for that. And what I wanted to start off today was, if that is resonating in some way, that you take some time to explore it, whether that's in journaling or whether it's, thinking about it while you're walking, or however you do that, perhaps it's drawing or painting, then explore it. Be curious. Why do I have this relationship with mess? What does it trigger in me? Where am I feeling it in my body? And what behaviour comes out of that feeling about mess? How does that behaviour make me feel, first and foremost? If there's a circular movement going on there of us giving out because the room is messy, the kitchen hasn't been tidied, whatever, and then we feel guilty or we beat ourselves up for behaving like that, and that's a pattern, then why do we think we have to continue in that way? But also understanding what's the impact of our knee-jerk behaviour on those who are around us. What are we perpetuating? What are we constantly vibrating outwards to other people? So that's one aspect. The other thing is emotional mess. In the case of the lovely woman that I witnessed making this discovery about herself, for her, my perception of what she said was that it was very much about emotional mess. When we often are in relationships that are not serving us in some way, and that doesn't have to be romantic relationships, it can be any relationship, and the reason we stay is because it'd be messy if I said I didn't want it anymore. It'd be messy, unpredictable. I don't know what might unravel if I just say this isn't working for me anymore. And it's a huge step for some of us to actually be okay with that being potentially messy, because the important thing is that when we let a fear of mess stop us from following our hearts or following our guts, then it really does get messy. And that is the mess to avoid. Our own spiritual mess, if you like. And sometimes, often, we can be carrying the results of inherited generational mess. And that obviously can be on all levels. That can be on physical levels, that can be on emotional levels, it can be on collectives and spiritual levels. And it's never too late to actually transform that if you want to, badly enough. And it may not outwardly change anything for other people, but how we feel and how we respond to mess is really important. So that is my invitation to you today, is do share in the comments any triggers that you might have. I know from my friends there are some very, very funny triggers that husbands and partners can often do, but in all seriousness, instead of just giving out about men, which I do not want to do, it's use it as a trigger for you to explore. Well, okay, may not be able to change his or her behaviour, but I can change my response to it. And if that feels, if that lands with you and you'd like some guidance at that, or you want to, just some guidelines, then do get in touch. And yeah, as I said, as a recovering perfectionist, I know that you can transform your response and your feelings to any kind of mess if you really want to. So I hope that makes sense. Let me see if I've forgotten anything, because I wrote some bullet points. It's such a big subject, actually. So yeah, just there's some questions with the post below. Where in your life does mess show up as being uncomfortable, fearful, not safe, out of control? And start there and just explore without any attachment to any particular outcome. It may be absolutely fine, and you may go, yeah, no, that's fine, actually it works well for me. And it may not be. Just explore with compassion and curiosity. And if you'd like a guide in that, I'm your woman. Okay, take care. Have a beautiful, messy, joyful, abundant week.